Hello, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry. This is episode 5 of the series. Apologies for the wait. I did not have any time to record Steins Gate this past week, but I'm always here for Umineko, because if I don't do it now, it'll never get done. Last time we let off, we got to look at some servants. Some new servants. Gohda sucks, by the way. Gohda stands, get out of here. And oh, we learned about the Golden Witch Beatrice and how this is her island, and that Kinzo may or may not be lying about the existence of the Golden Witch Beatrice, but we'll see. Without further ado, let's do this. Battler! You're slow! When I looked around, everyone was already heading towards the dining room. I hurriedly chased after them. We walked up to the huge double doors that led to the dining room. Genji-san knocked. "I have brought the children. Please pardon the intrusion." The doors were opened, and we were invited inside. Ooh. Hey, family. The dining room, which looked exactly like you'd imagine a rich person's dining room to be, had a super long table that was obviously positioned with no purpose other than to make the guests conscious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance with that ordering. "You're late, brats. Hurry up and take a seat." The old bastard pressed us to sit. The only gaps in that group of people were the spots we were supposed to sit, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, called the incipient's chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He probably wanted to show up last for dramatic effect, or he doesn't want to show up at all because he hates everybody in this household. From the perspective of someone facing the incipient's chair head-on, the seating order went from left to right, with the lower-ranking seats progressing in rows of 2 further away from it. So the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the incipient's chair, was where Uncle Krauss should have sat, since he was the second highest in rank. It looked like he hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. Across from his chair, on the right side of the first row, sat the eldest daughter of the family, Aunt Ava, who was the third highest in rank. The left-hand side of the second row was for the 4th highest in rank. There sat my damned dad, Rudolph, the third of the siblings. Across from him, on the right side of the second row, sat Aunt Rosa, the youngest sibling. At this point, you might expect their husbands and wives to come next, but no, they're not blood-related, so they can get all the way behind the children. But nope, the left-hand seat in the third row, ranked number 6, belonged to Jessica. Opposite her was George and Inky. I sat next to Jessica, and Maria sat across from me. Then, finally next to me on the left-hand side of the 5th row, sat Aunt Natsuhi, the 10th highest in rank. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. Next to Aunt Natsuhi in the left row, in the final seat on the left-hand side, sat Kiri-san. The seat opposite to Kiri-san was empty, even though silverware had been set there and everything. According to this ranking system, that spot was where Aunt Rosa's husband should be sitting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Normally, ranking systems of this sort give spouses equal positions as their partners, but the Ushiromiya family system was unique. We hate anyone who doesn't have Ushiromiya blood in them. Maybe it's a remnant of male chauvinism. If you start with the assumption that a woman's womb is just something to be borrowed, then the children of the direct descent would come first, directly followed by their grandchildren. In other words, spouses have no blood ties and are therefore placed at the end of the line, unless you make like a blood oath, or you spread a bloodborne disease, you know, or maybe hypothetically, if you got a blood transfusion from someone of Ushiromiya blood, would that make you of Ushiromiya blood since you have blood in you? I mean, it wasn't yours to begin with, but it's in you now. It's terrible, but by this system, my grandmother would be ranked even lower than me if she were still alive. Damn. In their youth, they obey their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. There's the old saying, women have no home in any realm. Man, I'm glad that the extreme sense of filial piety is not something I follow. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that we could all chat in our little groups, adult siblings with adult siblings and cousins with cousins. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. That's right, Battler. That's called critical thinking. I'm so glad you've developed it at your old age of 18. Aunt Natsuhi, who was married to the eldest son and was the de facto number 2 in managing this family, sat to my right, which meant that she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. Me, someone who hasn't been involved in this family for 6 years. It's hard to imagine what might be going on inside her heart. She hates everybody, ever. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture towards her before sitting down. She's just gonna hate you more, bro. How nice to see you, Battler-kun. You've grown quite tall, haven't you? Oh, yep. 6 long years of eating well, sampling various cuisines, and deriving sustenance from Mother Earth's bountiful gifts. And no shady mail order steroids. Hard work, but I pulled through. Growing just like a boy, I see. Oh, she's smiling. How tall are you now? I guess about 180 centimeters? But Aunt Natsuhi, that's where you're supposed to say, heck, sounds like all you did was eat. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. After a short pause, she did laugh with me, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. At him, silly. This woman is Aunt Natsuhi. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning she's my father's older brother's wife. By the way, that sound means we just got her bio. Finally. Oh, we read Genji's. Okay, let's see. Ushiramiya Natsuhi, Krauss's wife. She manages the household of the Ushiramiya head family in place of her husband, who takes little interest in such matters, until he gets the money from the inheritance. She was in charge of all preparations and arrangements for this family conference. She possesses a strong sense of responsibility and a great deal of pride. However, neither her husband nor his siblings understand her very well, so her position is far from enviable. I love how big the cuffs of her sleeves are. Okay, they're reasonably sized. But, Jesus. I like her dress. Or the skirt. That draping, it's nice. You kind of miss out on it with the pachinko. But it's something else in her design is enhanced. Anyways. Is it simpler if I just call her Jessica's mother? Yeah, it feels bad to say it like this, but while I didn't exactly dislike her, I didn't particularly like her either. She hardly ever spoke with us kids, and all my memories of her involve her talking to the adults about complicated things with a scary look on her face. In fact, since we hardly ever exchange words, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I should approach her. So my efforts seem to have ended in failure. The silverware sat neatly on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in yet. It's probably Gohda's fault. As a general rule, you couldn't start a meal until the person sitting at the head of the table arrived. So as long as grandfather didn't come, lunch would be put on hold indefinitely. Not even the appetizers would arrive. Simply put, the silence in this room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. However, the grandfather from my memories would always show up on time to meals like this. But this grandfather is old, degenerating, and, kind of crazy. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived. The grandfather's pretty late. As far as I can remember, he was always strict about time. Well, that might have been true 6 years ago. It hasn't been that way lately. In fact, he's off in his own little world so often that he doesn't even show up at family meals. Still, I figured he'd at least come down today. And again, I feel a lot more relaxed and happy without him. Jessica! When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. Well, Krauss isn't here either, which is unbecoming of the future family head. No way around it. Might as well wait until our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. Ushiromiya Kinzo, the aged family head of the Ushiromiya head family, who we just got the thing for. Even though it had already been announced that he has just a few months to live, he was brimming with energy. Though he amassed a vast fortune in the past, he never made any announcements regarding the inheritance, which worries his children. He is strongly influenced by the West and is a rabid fan of the occult. His study is packed with mysterious grimoires. Hypothetically, this means Maria should be his favorite grandchild because they both have similar interests, but knowing how bitter he is, he hates everybody, everything. Bro has a robe. I think... Insane work, just this entire outfit. Also, he's so important, his family crest is colored in. Ooh, everybody... Oh, not her. Everybody else has just the outline. But he has it fully colored in. That's because he's important. And he has 3. Does the number... Oh, I guess hers is... But, you know, it's a tattoo, but... Does the number of crests you have indicate something? Just like, you know, all the kids have 1. She has 1. He has 2. And she has... What, 3? So... Technically that makes her on par with... him. Oh, she has a code in one too, but again, that looks like a tattoo. I guess whenever we... I guess wait for Krauss. Let's see how his outfit is. Maybe it's just how well it goes with the fit. That's how many you get. This man could be seen in his study. The clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. What is up with it in old people and their entitlement? With his spectacles on, he built up a growing pile of books with elaborate bindings, which he then read intently. You couldn't really say that he was having too much fun to stop. Rather, he filled the room with a sense of impatience, or perhaps a sense of impending danger, as though every second wasted was a tragedy. In the sealed room, a dense dust danced through the air, which was thick with the stench of chemicals that exuded a mix of suspicious odors. Interesting. Those odors were somehow sweet and heavy. If anyone with a normal nose came in here the first thing they'd do would be to open a window and ventilate this room. The knocking against the sturdy door had been going on for a while. A voice calling "Father" sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut the old book in his hands and slammed it onto the table. Then he yelled at Krauss, who was still knocking on the door. "Silence! Enough with that racket, you fool!" Did he just punch his desk? What? Who told you the door would be opened if you... but knocked? Typo? I'll crucify the imbecile. Do you wish to suffer the same fate? Father, this is the day of the family conference, which happens only once a year, is it not? Everyone's gathered down below. Please come out. Krauss called out to his father through the door. Kinzo always shut himself up in the study, hating it when nearly anyone, even his family, entered the room. For that reason, Krauss had no choice but to call to him from the corridor like this. Molest me not, what the hell? Just who is this everyone of which you speak? The children came from you? The grandchildren which came from the children that came from you? The fuck you mean? Who is this everyone? Do you mean the fools trying to drag me out of here? Then kill them all. Tear them apart, use their bodies for firewood, and feed them into the witch's hearth. Put a pot in that hearth to boil the wormwood. Force the imbeciles who dare try to lure me out of here to drink the broth of the apocalypse. I will soak their dregs in liquor. Ha! Where is Genji? Call for Genji. My demonic absinthe prepared. The whispering of the green fairy reaches me no longer. Ha! Where is Genji? Bring him here. Okay, chill. On the other side of the door, Krauss, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who stubbornly refused to come out. Oh god, he looks like a tool. Oh my god. Never trust a man with a blonde comb-over. Never trust a man with a blonde comb-over. Looks like he hates me to the core. My voice doesn't reach him anymore. I wouldn't let it reach me either. Krauss shrugged as though saying, "It's no use," and smiled bitterly. From the beginning, he hadn't really expected his father to respond to his calls. However, since it was the duty of the eldest son, he had tried as a formality. Kinzo-san, your sons, daughters, and grandchildren have come to see you, have they not? Could you just let them see your face, if only for a short while? Shut up! Be silent! You dare admonish me, Nanjo? I never told anyone to get you. I told them to get Genji. Now call for him immediately. Time is short and the apostles are readying their trumpets. So why can't you foolish sheep understand? Kinzo slammed an old heavy book against the table over and over. That racket clearly expressed his great displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled, "Why? Why is there always something in my way? I would throw it all away, I would offer up everything, and there was only one thing I ask in repayment. Oh, Beatrice, if I could see your smile but one more time, I would plunder the smiles of earth and offer them all up to you. Oh, commanders of the legions of locusts, reap the smiles of the earth. Everything is filthy, everything is irksome. Why must I suffer this impediment on this most precious of days? Call for Genji. I have no idea what he's yelling about. He's probably lost his mind by now. Krauss-san, isn't it a bit harsh to say such a thing of your own father? My father is already dead. There's nothing here but a phantom of what father once was. At any rate, as long as he has no intention of coming out, there's nothing we can do. Kinzo-san. Choking coughs continued to pour from the study. I'm going back downstairs. It would be a waste to let the fruits of Gohda's prized cooking talent get any colder. It's one of the few things our relatives can look forward to when they come to this house. Krauss spun around. He looked at his watch, mumbling and acting as though he'd wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain. Genji-san, father is calling for you. Keep him company. Certainly. Dr. Nanjo, let's go eat. If we stay here any longer, this sweet stench will ruin our sense of taste. Without waiting for Nanjo, Krauss went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo glanced between the study door and Krauss's back as the latter disappeared down the stairs, then let out a deep sigh. Sorry, Genji-san, but please allow me to leave this in your hands. Yes, please leave it to me. Do what you can to avoid giving him alcohol. That's a habit that's far too difficult to break. Is Genji not here yet? Who dares keep Genji from coming? Ugh, where's Genji? Call for Genji. Please, allow me to handle the situation here. Very well. Forgive me. Nanjo bowed silently and descended the stairs. Genji watched him leave, then knocked on the study door. Master, it is Genji. Genji? Why have you kept me waiting so long? You're alone, I trust? Correct. I am alone. Kinzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. Rich people and their contraptions and devices. What do you mean he has a switch in this to open the door? After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Kinzo was convinced that his family wanted to make a mess of his study. Or perhaps someone had once opened the window for some air and ended up scattering things that, to him, were important research materials, leaving him in a terrible mood. Kinzo had outfitted his room with a formidable lock, preventing anyone from entering without his permission and thereby sealing himself in a jail of his own making. Genji, whom he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that didn't always hold. If Kinzo was in a bad mood, even Genji wouldn't be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, unable even to see Kinzo's face. And most of the time, what they got could hardly be called a conversation. Bro. What a recluse. However, this didn't trouble the rest of the family much. They didn't really like Kinzo. After all, it just wasn't worth the effort to disturb this aging family head who was impossible to please and always stayed shut away, immersed in his research. Taking advantage of his refusal to leave his room, they supported his isolation, putting his care entirely into the hands of the servants. Genji, my usual. I'm busy. Yes, sir. Oh, bro folded so quickly. Genji headed to a corner of the study. There, suspicious-looking bottles boasting venomous colors were on display. He couldn't have served his own drink. They were actually liquor, but considering the shady atmosphere of this room, one might easily suspect them of being some ghastly poison. Inside the study, the mysterious collection of books gathered by Kinzo had grown into a mountain. They were bizarre, ancient, or banned books, all of them either forbidden, cursed, or sealed. But if you tried to call them old books, Kinzo would fly into a rage and say, "Call them grimoires." There were also many mysterious objects that presumably held some meaning with regards to black magic, like candles suspiciously melted and molded into strange shapes. The constellations drawn on a certain celestial globe contained quite a few shapes that would draw puzzled looks from anyone familiar with today's night sky. The carelessly strewn about books contained many illustrations, all of them of a religious or mysterious nature, including some depicting demonically grotesque subjects or bizarre diagrams of various magic circles. And above all, a sweet, poisonous smell filled the room, profoundly assaulting the eyes and noses of those who entered for the first time. Eventually, it must surely make a person go numb and lose their grip on reality. Inside that study, Genji prepared Kinzo's usual drink with a well-trained hand. No one would even think of drinking such an ominous dark green liquid in that complex and ornate glass, unless someone first told them it was alcohol. He poured a little into the glass. Then, he placed a cube of sugar in a strangely shaped spoon and poured water from a pitcher over it. Strangely, when the transparent water was poured, the dark green liquid turned a cloudy white. What is this concoction? And why? How does one discover they like it? It was a strange optical illusion, as though the water had caused a chemical reaction and made the drink become even more unrecognizable as liquor. Then, Genji added original flavors Kinzo loved, fine-tuning its taste. What does original flavors constitute? What does that mean, original flavors? There was no recipe. Its success was measured only by Kinzo's mood swings when he drank it, and it had taken Genji many decades to learn how to do it right. Genji placed a glass on a tray and walked over to Kinzo. By this time, Kinzo was gazing out the window. "Here, master." "Thank you." Kinzo had regained his composure and was now unrecognizable as the shouting, screaming, yelling man from a few moments ago. Looking at this man from behind as he tilted his glass and gazed down at the scenery beyond the window, he projected a sense of dignity and intelligence. To allow Kinzo to set his glass down at any time, Genji motionlessly waited behind Kinzo and to his left, as though he were a living sideboard. Then, without averting his eyes from the window, Kinzo held out his glass. There was only a mouthful remaining. It was not a gesture intended to set it upon the tray, but a motion to hand the glass over to Genji. "Drink, my friend. Your words are too kind for me. No need for ceremony between us. Drink, my friend." "Thank you." Genji respectively received the glass and inclined it as a little to taste its contents. After that, he gulped it down. "I attempted to imitate your concoction, but no matter how I try, I cannot replicate the taste. The way you make it is pure relish. Maybe watch him do it." "Thank you very much. It is the fruit of your guidance, master." Kinzo smiled at his loyal subject, who refused to put aside rank even when asked to. However, he was not making fun of him. His smile was relaxed, as though chuckling at a close friend's old, unshakable habit. "We have grown old together. I stopped counting the years long ago. It's entirely thanks to you, master, that I've been able to live like this until today." Kinzo gave a faint smile, as if to say he didn't need any flattery. "Until now, you have served me exceedingly well. My sons call me eccentric. The servants that were once manly have all quit in fear of me. Only you serve me, even now. Your words are more than I deserve. My life will not last much longer. My sons are vultures, lazily waiting for my inheritance to fall into their hands. Krauss is a fool who squanders money like water, who throws away 2 gold coins to obtain 1. And then he has the gall to claim that he's earned money. Ava is a slave to money who thinks of me as a mere chicken. When I die, she plans to use my bones to make a broth. That dunce Rudolph just wants to fool around with women. Rosa bore the baby of a man who came from nowhere and about whom we know nothing. Has he really been brought to tears by his children? How much he hates his children, he's crying over that. He hates his children that much. Jessica is incompetent and uneducated. George has none of what it takes to be a man. Battler is a fool who threw away the honor of the Ushirmiya family. Maria's a little freak. And Maria's obscene to the eye. She's 9, okay? Why is the Ushirmiya blood so incompetent? It's gonna sound crazy, but it might be a failure of you as a father. Most of the time, that's the issue. It's probably your fault, and seeing how you act, it definitely is your fault. Is there no one worthy to inherit the glory I built? Huh, of course I know. This is part of Beatrice's curse. I know it. Huh, you golden witch, are you trying to take revenge against me in this way? If you want to hate me, then do so. If you want to run away, then run. I won't let you go. 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 You belong to me. You must always be in my arms. For all my life. You must stay in my birdcage for all eternity, whispering only to me. I have a feeling why Beatrice hasn't shown back up for you, buddy. It's only a slight feeling, but you know, it might be even far-fetched to say why, but... Beatrice, why won't you smile back at me? Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. Why not? Oh, Beatrice. Oh. After howling, Kinzo choked once again. Genji set the tray and glass down and rubbed his master's back. Like he's a big baby, bro. Genji's facial expression did not change. He was always like this. Thank you, my friend. When his seemingly deranged fit subsided, Kinzo regained his composure once again. It was like seeing 2 different people, a wild Kinzo and a composed Kinzo living together inside one body. And so, I've decided. I cannot bear to spend my dimmed remaining years procrastinating. You don't have years left, pal. You do not have years left on your lifespan. If I have one final coin to bet, then I choose to abandon it to the whims of the demon's roulette. The power of magic is always determined by the risk of the gamble. Like visiting a shrine at the hour of the ox in ancient Japanese sorcery to nail a cursed doll to a tree. Magical power is produced specifically because of the risk that it will be seen within the 7 days the curse takes. The greater the risk, the stronger the magic power will be. Many miracles that happened in myth might be called the crystallization of shocking magic power, with a low probability of occurrence and astronomical risk. That Moses parted the waters of the sea was not a miracle of God. The risk of that desperate situation, cornered by soldiers on the Red Sea shores, weighed upon the scales of slaughter and gave birth to that miraculous magic power. If the same thing occurred again on the same scale, the sea would surely fail to part. After all, Moses was able to magnificently summon a miracle engraved on but one of the countless, innumerable results on the roulette of those with power. This is the force that can triumph over astronomical odds. Indeed, good fortune that can grasp miracles is magical power itself. To obtain this mighty power, one must face the risk of despair. Those who possess no magical power may call that desperation rather than a bet. However, people who truly do possess magic power can grasp hold of that miracle and make the enigma come into being. And if that power exists within me, I'll seize that miracle. I'll have a chance at making the wish I devoted my life towards come true. Kinzo looked up to the sky outside the window. He spread his arms as if appealing to someone up in the skies. If only I were capable of grasping that miracle. Oh, Beatrice, Beatrice, show me your lovely smile once more. No matter how much time passes, your face does not vanish. I just want to see your smile, that is all. I'll return everything you granted me. I'll return all the glory I've gained since that day. I don't need fortune, prestige, or gold. I'll return everything you gave me. I just want to see your smile. I beg of you, Beatrice. His nonsensical yells became a scream, and then a wail. Kinzo slumped to the floor, tearing at it with both hands. Genji had no choice but to wordlessly watch over his master's lamentations. Anyway, back downstairs. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the family head's health is not at its best. He seemed extremely sad not to be able to share lunch with you all now that you have gathered for this event that occurs once a year. Gohda, let the lunch begin. Certainly, I shall begin today's luncheon. I want to beat this guy up. Dr. Nanjo, is father's condition really that bad? Couldn't he have at least let us see his face? It's more a problem of mood than of physical condition. And for that, there is no medicine I can prescribe. Hey, are we talking about his mood again? You've got to be kidding me. We took time out of our schedules during this damn busy autumn season just to come and find out how he's doing. And now he's... Then you should be happy, Rudolph. You now know how he's doing. Or what? Would you rather take my place and try to persuade our ill-humored father to come join us? Are you kidding? Rudolph shrugged. Apparently, though Rudolph was willing to be indignant about how self-centered his father was, he wasn't particularly disappointed to be spared a face-to-face meeting. Does it seem like his mood will improve before dinner, Krauss-Nissan? I have no idea. If you want to know that, you should ask him directly. Although, I think his mood will improve faster if we don't bother him. Kenji-san's the only one who could get grandfather out of a funk. It's pretty pathetic, though, making a servants deal with your own parents' bad mood. Jessica? Don't speak out of turn. She'd planned for a complaint to be heard only by her cousins, but it had reached even Krauss's ears. Scolded, Jessica scowled and turned away, sulking. If he's as cranky as they make him sound, he can't be that terribly sick, right? I mean, they're saying he's in a bad mood, not that he's got no energy, which at least proves he's got his wits about him. Ah, Battler, I see you've been reading the character bio. It's because grandfather has especially strong willpower. However, that doesn't necessarily mean his body will be able to keep up. Since last year, they keep saying that he has 3 months left. If the initial diagnosis was correct, grandfather has been prolonging his life by willpower alone. It's right for us to worry about him. Lunch started with the family head seat still empty. The man who should be sitting there had already grown old, and the brilliant glory which had rebuilt the Ushiromio family in the span of a single lifetime was being forgotten. Even though they were beginning the meal with that seat still empty, no one felt it was that odd anymore. Okay. Oh. Time's passing. 1 o'clock? Oh. 1:30. The Ushiromia Family Conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children. And no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly, how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently, it used to be a very serious family meeting where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for his grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste even more delicious, much more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Never have I heard that one, but I will be using it. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle. This name sure is easy to read. Krauss. Now that we've gotten used to the string. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. So Krauss doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kind of cool. So let's look at the. Let's see. Krauss. Okay, we got the whole family line. All that's left is Nanjo. Kinzo's first child. As the oldest of the 4 siblings, he leads the family conference. However, the other siblings think he is trying to get all of the inheritance for himself, and this further strains the tensions between them. He's a real estate investor and has put a lot of money into the development of a resort. However, his results have been harshly criticized. I don't like this fit, because he's got red jacket, black waistcoat, like powder blue periwinkle shirt button up, and then a pale yellow tie. Who dressed? Actually, okay, Hideyoshi's slightly better because at least the shirt and the tie are coherent. What is this? Also, oh, it's so cute. They share green jewel. Jessica doesn't have one, but oh, ugh. Why does he look like that? I don't trust anyone who plays in pachinko with the pachinko sprites. Also, he only has 2 Oh, and the white shoes? I'm sorry, I forgot to mention those. Like, the white shoes look good with this outfit, but with an outfit of this many colors, he needs black shoes. He definitely needs black shoes. Oh my god. Yeah, no. Okay. Worst dressed in this family? Krauss. Worst dressed. Best dressed? I think I think it was between Ava and Maria. Though Nazi's up there too. I really like her fit. Oh, Battler, that's who it was. Ava and Battler. Because this fit goes hard. See, this is how you wear a black well, I guess that's not a waistcoat. It's not as well. Either way, Krauss, this is how it's supposed to look. Look at your nephew. How is he defeating you in terms of outfit? I don't know, but you should relinquish your family head position. Just like with Aunt Natsuhi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Krauss. He had never been one to chat with the children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Krauss used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling and was despised by all the other siblings. Wow, I wouldn't have been able to guess. Though despite that, those siblings all seem to be chatting happily together. Oh, they haven't gotten back in a group of hating each other yet. Oh well, even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposely faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the opposite end from Krauss and the others. The very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kiri-san. This was my first time meeting him. I'd only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. And that is the last member of our little tree. Attending physician Nanjo. Kinzo's attending physician and longtime friend. He once ran a hospital on Najima, but he turned it over to his son and now enjoys his old age in peace. Now that Kinzo's constant suspicion has reached extraordinary heights, Nanjo is one of the very few people he trusts. Thanks to Nanjo's big-hearted nature, he has been able to continue his friendship with Kinzo despite the latter's tendency to fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. Well, what is he, it's not bad. See, also, this isn't a bad outfit. I like the green. Green is my favorite color, so I'm kind of biased, but still. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Najima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, what with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rokenjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kiri and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushiromiya family attend a family conference was a little odd. It made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been trying to get Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich Consider how rich grandfather is. I don't know what's happening. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid, and it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that incipient chair is Ushirimiya Kinzo. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo. But he let us call him Goldsmith or something. I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Krauss about who should go convince grandfather to come down seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era. 1926 to 1989. We're in 1989. Until the Meiji, 1868 to 1912, and Taisho, 1912 to 1926, eras, the Ushirimiya family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he had hardly any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushirimiya family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushirimiya family lost most of its wealth and its family members in an instant. So once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushirimiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo and his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune, so great that it overturned fate. With that, grandfather's boring, everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushirimiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. From the Golden Witch? Once he'd built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike and then another one, just like some crazy street performance. I'll bet everyone thought grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning, when he started investing his money. The history books make it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off of the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played that money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure this all happened during the year Showa 25, 1950 or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924, so that means grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushirimiya family in only about 20 years to a level even higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara. But for some reason, he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Uzu archipelago. Yeah, because that's normal. Beatrice was whispering in his ear. Kinzo. Kinzo. Buy me an island, Kinzo. I'll give you all the money you could ever want. Kinzo. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. However, Grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seemed under-the-table bribes did their work well. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact. Grandfather, with his love of the Western style, made this once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for anybody. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that's how they're portrayed after the fact. But Grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. From Beatrice. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island, where all his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, Grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. See now, if I became suddenly rich, I'd probably get really into my hobbies too. Like, I wouldn't have to do anything, I'd still be making a ton of money, I could just do whatever I want. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved success in life had a right to do as he pleased, but there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles with both opportunities and risks. Let's say Grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and would probably have advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere, happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this, more like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. He probably wouldn't even be having a family conference. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. Ugh, I'm already convinced by that sashimi salad appetizer. Gohda-san's an excellent chef. Plus, these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at the supermarket. Hey, quit it, Battler. Your upbringing will be exposed. Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs. Haha. I've eaten at many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Gohda-san used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details, but stuff got complicated at the long-standing hotel he used to work at. What with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions or whatever it was. In the middle of all that, he was apparently forced to retire. That time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. As Gohda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. But inside, fuck these kids for bringing up my stupid fucking past. No one wanted me because of my stupid fucking attitude, because I'm a fucking miserable person. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to Madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again. This time for the Ushirimiya family suck-up. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. All of this is thanks to the opportunity given to me by the Madam. Gohda-san respectfully bowed his head towards Aunt Natsuhi. That's because you were the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there is no need to thank me. Yeah, put him in his place, Natsuhi. Dang, why does not Natsuhi always have to send someone different? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Shannon-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with a serving cart. Please excuse us. Now then, let us move on to today's dessert. Gohda-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I thought I'd already filled up on the delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling more. I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce. Oh, I wouldn't eat it. 1, I don't like pudding. 2, red sauce? That means it's probably like cherry or strawberry or... I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of fruity desserts. And elegant rose petals adorn the dish. Normally, during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, Now, it's okay. Huh? This part's sour! This part's sour! Battler, this one's no good! Oh! Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces. What, some are good and some bad? Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Well, one of these sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. Raspberry? No, not raspberry. Maybe raspberry? I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shannon-chan, what kind of sauce is the sour stuff? Shannon-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd be better off not knowing about? While Aunt Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. What do you think we made it out of? Ho, it'll shock you. I don't have a clue. Wait a sec, Kumasawa-san, that laugh's pretty creepy. So what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught Jessica, George and Iki, and of course Maria also put their ears closer. Ooh, what? What? Quickly! You see, the sour part is made from juice squeezed from a mackerel. What? Mackerel? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely. Oh, mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. When Maria started clamoring that mackerel were sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is sour when only once prepared as shimisaba. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. The most lethal has gotta be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikarage mushrooms. She told me that they were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa-bachan, you sure haven't changed. You know, Maria's gonna believe it now, right? Oh, it's just a joke. Now Gohda-san's going to tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Gohda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason. But after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. No way! You're gonna do what? I think he's gonna introduce the dessert. After seeing how much you all enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. That's what panna cotta is. Pudding-like thing? I wouldn't like it. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. The sauce is a combination of two reds, strawberry and rose hips. Okay, I don't know what the hell rose hips are. Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rose hip sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. With that said, please enjoy. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Umineko When They Cry. It was pretty solid. We get more, well, now we know everybody on the family tree sheet. Introduced everyone. Kinzo's still kind of a freak. And I don't like Krauss. I don't like Gohda. Yeah, so, again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Bye!